Hey there, Dirt Crew. Today we have Stephen Metzler, president of CAMBA, the Cleveland Area Mountain Biking Association. Now, in 2001, a group of mountain bikers formed CAMBA because they want to develop a legal trail system, which prior to that, they would either have to ride on private land or on hiking trails, which is obviously illegal. So, CAMBA was formed, and its mission is to promote, protect, create, and enhance a diverse variety of trails, interconnected trails, through education, advocacy, and action. So, Stephen, welcome to the Dirt. Really appreciate you having.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate being on. Thanks very much for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, what your role is with CAMBA, and we'll get started with there.
Great. Yeah, I am the current president of CAMBA. I'm in my second year of my second term, which is coming to an end at the end of the year. And I'll be transferring the reins over to Paul Bodnar.
Okay.
We just had an election. The board elected some new slates of leaders, and we've added some people to our board of directors. So I'm going to take a step back and take a board role, and I'll be the chairman of the advisory board.
Oh, great.
At the start of the new year.
Wonderful. So what are the role and responsibility of president and your new role? What's going to be the transition there?
Well, as president, we view that role as, trying to lead the organization. It's an all volunteer organization. So we have no paid staff, and it's a little like herding cats, right? When you have volunteers, it's hard to, we have a great group, and it's just been getting better year over year. So, it's leading that organization, trying, I meet with various land managers. I meet with, people like yourself that want to talk about different things. And, I'm open to, listening to groups and doing, we continue to do advocacy work now. Mm-hmm. But, as you mentioned, we were formed in 2001. So 2021 will be our 20th anniversary. So we were excited about that, although, COVID may curtail some of the activities that we would have liked to have seen, more public group activities. But, so as I transition, as I said, I'll be a member of the board. And being a board member for CAMBA, you have voting rights for when things come up. We have monthly meetings. And things are brought to the table, whether large expenditures or bringing other people on. The board members can vote on that. And as we have a advisory board, which is basically made up of individuals, not necessarily within CAMBA, but they could be advocacy, people in the industry, other people who are interested. So we get together several times a year with those folks to kind of help, maybe bring in ideas and things that, the board should look at from, they're looking at it from a different perspective, not look, because as we're internal, we sometimes are blinded by certain things, because we're, we see it every day, but we have these other individuals come in, kind of just help, throws out ideas and things like that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I guess, let's take a little bit of a step back. For the person that knows absolutely nothing about CAMBA other than the sentence I just said at the beginning, what does CAMBA do? Where does the, so if they're donating, how does CAMBA use that money to help, promote and maintain trails or build new trails?
Yeah, I really do think that that the average mountain biker doesn't really, they know we have a Facebook page, we have a group page, and, we pass out information on that. We, answer questions, but, there's a lot behind the scenes that goes on. And it started, as you mentioned, back in 2001, when a couple of guys got together and they wanted legal trails. So, it's been basically the bulk of it's been, bulk of the time since then has been advocacy, going in there and trying to get trails, which is easier said than done. I see a lot of posts out there is, why can't we get a trail at, North Chagrin or, wherever it is. And it's not that easy. If you have private land and, who's got, 20 acres of private land in their back pocket that we can build trails on, it just doesn't happen.
Right.
So we started with obviously with the national park and with Cleveland Metro Parks. Those were the biggest chunks that, the biggest parks that we have in the area, as well as Summit Metro Parks, to go in there and try to get trails built. And it took a long time. I mean, we started advocating in both Cleveland Metro Parks and in CVMP back since 2005.
Wow.
So it took a long time, to get approval, and it's a slow process. And, each of those agencies are different. They have all land managers have a different working, how they, what their process is. They've got they have, ecology studies, land management studies, all kinds of studies they do before they're going to allow, trails to be built in there, other trails. And mountain biking back then was not viewed like it is today. It was kind of a, verboten, they're going to be tearing up the trails, and they don't care about they're going to run over the hikers. And you still see that today in other areas of the country where mountain biking is just getting introduced. The people just don't understand it. They don't understand, that mountain bikers are really passionate about it, and they want to keep sustainable trails. They're pretty much self-policing, I mean, with the exceptions of, a few individuals. But, that's the thing, is to get out there and really talk to the land managers, convince them. And it took a long time to really do that. And, we did it through physical meeting with these land managers. And I would say the biggest tide change was when these park systems got new leadership, more progressive leadership, in the early to mid 2000s, where they realized that, these parks, people want to recreate in these parks, right? It's mountain biking. Even now it's taken how many years for the Cuyahoga Valley to recognize that, kayaking, people want to kayak in the river. I mean, the river's cleaner now, right? So they've got to transition their mindset into looking at, what do people want? Back in the 90s and early 2000s, golf was a big thing, right? But this day and age, most people don't have 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours to devote on a weekend just to play golf, right? You throw your bike in your car, hit a trail, and be home, in 2-3 hours, right? So I think the park systems recognize that that's what people want. And also then as, parks came online, as trails came online, other parks were like, wait a minute, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't, because we're bringing in a whole new user group into the park, introducing people to the park systems. And that's how you get support for, the parks. Most of them are, the county parks, they're funded by levies, right? So if the people enjoy being in their parks, they're going to want to fund those levies. So, it's a lot of work to get these parks. We put out calls of action back in 2005, and 400 letters got written to Cleveland Metro Parks from mountain bikers that wanted to build trails in those parks, and they took notice of that. And it happened again in Summit Metro Parks, where at one point the Hampton Hills almost didn't get finished because some of the park board were like, we don't want to spend any more money. We don't think anybody's going to, it's not a good use of taxpayers' funding. We put a call to action out. Letters got written, and they're on public record as saying that's the most letters they ever got about one specific item up to that point, because people want to be out there in these parks.
Mm-hmm. And I think something that's important to realize and have in the narrative is that for many people, mountain biking is not really just their hobby. Like, people identify as a mountain biker, like it's a lot of their lifestyle, and a lot of their friend group and their community revolves around this activity. So people can be very passionate about it, whether it be for good or for bad, right? People on both sides of the fence there.
Right, because you look at communities out west, you look at, North Carolina, Brevard. I mean, that's a community of mountain bikers and hikers and, other outdoor enthusiasts. And it's a cool situation, I mean, obviously it's not the same here. We've got these cities have, we're in the industrial belt, and we came up in a different time, and we don't have, we don't have the elevation here in Ohio that other places have, that it could really be a huge draw. But I think we do draw people from all over that come in here that are amazed that we have these kind of trails in Ohio.
Right.
When I started riding, you had OECR, you had a little bit of Medina, you had Mohican if you wanted to go down there, and West Branch. And, it's amazing how many trails we've gotten now, and the expanse of, and so many people are involved now. It's just, we get 2 to 3, 4 every day, people wanting to get on the, asking to get on the Facebook page. That's, every single day. So that just tells you how much mountain biking has exploded in Northeast Ohio and in Ohio in general. Back in 2008, you go into a bike shop, you probably would not see a mountain bike in there. If you did, it'd be like on the low end. Trek had something specialized, Giant, but you couldn't buy parts. It was all roadies here, and the transition over the years is just incredible. You go into bike shops now, and it's little section of road bikes and a ton of mountain bikes. Obviously not if we did that today because of the situation and the shortage on bikes, but it's been a really cool transition to see, and it's been really cool to be part of, and I'm glad that CAMBA's been at the forefront of that.
Yeah, and that's a great transition, because one of my questions for you is, we're obviously in the middle of a national shortage of bikes, and we have a lot, myself included, right? Pretty much brand new to the sport, either beginning of this year or maybe they were dabbling in it at the end of last year. But we have a much larger population on the trails. So, I guess what would you say to either those people or even like maybe the veterans that are challenging the trail crews, like maybe changes are being made because there's so many more people out there? What would you say to the people kind of contesting what the trail systems are doing to keep up with that load?
Well, I think this is a guiding principle I've had throughout my whole life. It's, be a part of the solution, not the problem.
Yeah.
Get involved. Public parks, they have a large user base, right? It's not just mountain biking, right? It's not just, equestrian trails, not just hiking trails. They have a wider group. And then they take if you look at each park, they take the approach a little bit differently. Cleveland Metro Parks doesn't take it the same way as Summit or CVMP. Places like Austin Badger, they're pretty much given free rein to build what they want. And I think that's great. I don't think we should have one size fits all trail. And if you don't like if you don't like a specific trail, don't trash the trail. Go ride somewhere else. I just think that, for us that when we started didn't have any trails, these people come on and this trail sucks. It may not be your kind of trail, but don't go out and say that to people who are just learning. People ask a question, what's a good trail for me to try? That trail sucks. Don't go on that trail. Well, come on. Everybody starts somewhere. And I think trails, we don't have the best soil conditions here in Northeast Ohio. That's the biggest issue that we face as trail builders, as trail advocates, as park managers, is the soil conditions. It's just not a good mix. You go up to Michigan, drive a couple hours away, they have sandy soil, trails drain quickly.
Yeah.
We don't have that. So, we have to do different things. And for everybody for every one person that says, I hate roots, there's a person that says, I love roots. Don't take it, so it's a balancing act, but ultimately it's up to each individual land manager what they want. But again, it comes back to use your voice. Don't go on a Facebook page and rant about a trail. Write a letter to the agency. Get involved in CAMBA. I've always said that to be a strong voice, you have to have a strong membership. Whenever there's if anything ever happens with equestrian trails and they put a call to action out to the Ohio Horsemen's Council, you're guaranteed to get hundreds of letters, hundreds of people showing up. They're a cohesive group.
Yeah.
The more members we have, the bigger our voice can be. If I can go to a land manager and say, I have 550 plus members, that's better than in 2015 when we went and said, yeah, we have 260 members. We can do more as a cohesive. And, we always see posts about why isn't CAMBA doing well? We're only as strong as our members, right? We're not an official agency. We don't have power. We can't tell the parks what to do. We walk a balance because, we have to support the park systems. We want to keep that relationship going. That's the only way we get trails built and trails maintained. So, if you don't like what one trail manager's doing, write a letter that, talk about it. You had Ralph on, and he said he was open to the criticism. He was open to comments. That's what trail builders do. But it doesn't mean that just because a handful of people want to see 20-foot drops, that's going to be built in the Cleveland Metro Parks. It's just not going to happen. You got to be realistic here too. But get involved. Don't sit on the sidelines and complain. Get involved.
I think a perfect example of that, and it's kind of top of mind, right? Because so much work is going into it right now is Royalview, right? Like people are complaining that there's that certain areas of Royalview are getting quote unquote paved over. But I think what people don't realize is that those areas have chronic drainage issues, and the widening of the trail, and you mentioned it earlier, environmental and ecological impact reports were done, and there's a threat of losing trails when they're no longer environmentally sustainable. And people have to realize that I would rather have a trail that's maybe a little bit different than it was last year than to have that trail closed.
Absolutely. I can remember specifically when Royalview first opened up, we went up to the ceremony. We were up there with everyone, and I rode it the first time, and it was fast. It was fairly smooth, but over time, just like West Branch now, soil compaction, happens, and that's when the roots come out, right? So you're compacting the soil around the roots. The roots aren't getting compacted, so that comes out. The drainage, if you remember back a little over a year ago, after spring of 2019 was awful here, right? It rained into July almost. We didn't have any group rides till mid-July, which is crazy because the trails were closed, and everybody was complaining that Royalview was a mud pit. It was getting wider and mud. Well, yeah, okay. So like you said, the only solution is you have to then bring up the trail, try to get it above the water, that
water table, yeah.
Yeah, and it's either building a bridge or building, and you had Kenny on, a couple of weeks ago, and he said the same, you build a wooden bridge, you got to maintain that wooden bridge. Mm-hmm. There's money, I just rode Bedford the other night, and, some of those bridges, the boards are starting to break.
Yeah.
So somebody's got to go out there, cut lumber, put that all in, and, that's time and money for these parks. So.
Yeah, the bridge right before that big climb. In fact, so right as you cross the road, I was going through that, and I saw it too late. My tire just dug into that section, and then I saved it, but it was a hazard, right? And so those things have to be maintained for the safety of the riders. And again, we have a lot of newer riders. But there's tangible costs to upkeep, not even just including the actual labor and time to go and do that. So I think it's good to have people realize what goes into trail maintenance, which is why I wanted to have Kenny and Ralph on. But the other part of that is coordinating groups, right? Making sure that you can keep those trails open, making sure that you're navigating the policies and politics with these very diverse groups between the metro parks, the the Medina Trail systems, the CVNP. it's all different, and someone has to coordinate that all. So that's a big part of what CAMBA does, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think people don't realize there's no trail fairies out there. Volunteers for the most part maintain these trails. Ralph has a small crew, as he stated. You know, I mean, and it's seasonal, so we supplement it. They have volunteer times. I mean, that's how things get done. It's volunteers. You know, Eastrum, while it was cut and it was flagged and cut and and originally built by a company, CAMBA and the volunteers and the Cuyahoga Valley National Park volunteers came in and really finished the trail off. And that takes time and effort. Several years ago when all these trails opened up, we were like, oh, good news is we got a lot of trails. Oh, bad news, we got a lot of trails we have to maintain now.
Right.
It's a bad news situation. And, people are always saying, yeah, I'll come out and help. And, for years, it was been the same handful of volunteers.
Right.
Medina, it's the same small group. Kenny's group is small down at Tuscazor. Fortunately, Cleveland Metro Parks and Cuyahoga Valley National Park have a huge volunteer outreach, right? They have a lot of volunteers to do a lot of things, and they're not even mountain bikers. When Eastrum was getting built, the Conservancy for Cuyahoga Valley National Park had these big, huge service days several times a year. We had people coming out that never even were on a mountain bike, but wanted to come out and just give back to the park, and
Right.
came out and learned how to build mountain bike trails. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But look what happened to Medina just after Labor Day. You're talking about bridges. They got a bunch washed out. We're just about to approve some funding to help them buy lumber to replace those bridges. But again, it takes time and that takes volunteers. Those are volunteers out there trimming. That's the biggest thing. Come out and volunteer. Be a part of it. Don't complain about a trail if you've never picked up a shovel or never donated to Cleveland Metro Parks Trails or Cuyahoga Valley or CAMBA. Be involved with it.
So I guess how do we bridge that gap, right? Like, how do you take the person that's saying, hey, why is River Trail not open? And how do you turn that into someone that is actively being part of the solution beyond donating?
That's a challenge in a number of ways. I think, we seem to rely a lot now on Facebook, right? But if the Medina Trails crew posts a trail day, it doesn't come up in everybody's feed, or it comes up a day later. I know groups that I follow, I get the information like 2 days later. I'm like, well, why is it coming up 2 days ago? I needed to see that before. So that's part is getting the word out. But I think if you're interested in it, right, then you follow their groups. You pay attention to what's going on. The information's out there, right? All you have to do is, do a simple search on Facebook or Google. I saw a post the other day. Somebody said, "How come doesn't anybody understand how to Google information or look it up? Why is everybody always asking the same question? It's readily available. Just got to look for it."
Steve, you're saying that there's a use for the CAMBA group other than asking if trails are open after it rains.
Don't even get me started on that.
Or complaining about something. Those are the only two things we see.
I know, right? Or silly memes. We created the group to share information, to help people, and some of these, our Facebook admin spend too much time, having to delete comments because they're not relevant to the discussion. Let people can have opinions, but be respectful to other people that are in that group and the CAMBA. We're facilitating that we could shut it off. We don't want to do that. We don't want to delete people's comments, but stay on the mission.
I am occasionally a Facebook keyboard warrior, but it's always for advocacy and it's always for the health of the trail. So if I ever say anything I shouldn't, you can delete that. It was in a moment of weakness, I promise. All right. Well, so we got about 10 minutes left. So far, it has been really great. I've got a couple of questions that, even with context, might be a little bit controversial. So I'm you're the right person, I feel, to ask on these, though. And I think it harkens back to what you were saying earlier, right? Like whenever mountain bikers first started trying to get on the trails, there was a lot of worry. There was a lot of pushback on them because they were worried that, they would be running over hikers, right? Or they would be damaging the trails. And to me, I see a lot of parallels between that concern and the current concern with like pedal assist or e-bikes as well. It is no secret that my main bike is an e-bike, and I've used that. I've lost a bunch of weight this year. I've got really active in the hobby. Where do you see either the main pushback on those or changes in the future that might support a more welcoming community to those?
Well, I think you hit the point really hard. It's new, right? It's a new thing. It's people look at it as, hey, I climbed that hill. Why is somebody, using an e-bike pedal assist to get up that hill? And the parallels are like, well, they've been using it in Europe for years. They're using it out west. But you look at, like, I've ridden out west, and the trails there, they're almost all of them are multi-use, right? Including equestrians. They're
right.
And they're, the climbs are tremendous, and there's just seems like a lot more open space. Here, you look at East Rim, you're like, especially like on the East Rim Trail, there's some tight turns, and and I think it's just a matter of people have to get used to the idea. People have to see how, the trail managers, land managers have to really see, what's the impact. And it's not just the environmental or the physical impact of that on a trail. Because it is, people say, well, it's no different. But, if I'm pedaling my bike, I can only do so many laps at East Rim. So, you can do, on a pedal assist, you can do more laps. So there's more, there is more tires on that trail.
Right.
And, when the trails were built, a lot of these trails, e-bikes were not really in the picture at that point, right? So how do those e-bikes, how are they going to impact? And then the other riders, there was a post the other day about, somebody was ranting about, not getting past and nobody calling out. And then, then it became a little back and forth between, well, it's not always the faster rider that's the problem. It's the slower rider not moving. But we've all experienced it. I've had somebody ride up on me, not say anything, and I don't hear them. People say, oh, you should be able to hear them. Well, I don't wear earbuds, and there's many times if they're riding fast, I'm in my own world. I'm thinking.
Absolutely.
All you have to do is say, hey, move over. I'm not a fast rider, so but give me a chance. Don't, I'm not going to move over someplace that's dangerous to me or to the other rider. But, and then same token, I've ridden up on people that are, I'm like, hey, can I pass? Hey, can I pass? So, there's always going to be those situations, but I think it's new to people. People are passionate about, if they're only downhillers, they want to ride downhill. They want to ride fast down. They want tabletops, forget about the cross country people. So I think that over time there'll be more of an acceptance, and we really do need to see what's the impact on the trail. And again, not just to the surface of the trail, but to the other users. Is there an impact? I don't know. We haven't really had enough time to really look at it, and and right now it's up to the land managers. They set the policies on their individual trails based on their overall user group. When Cuyahoga Valley allowed e-bikes on the towpath, I was reading the post just to see what people, and people were like up in arms that they're going to run kids over, they're going to run dogs over. I spent a lot of time on the towpath, especially around the Beaver Marsh area. I'm a volunteer there. I see guys and gals riding bikes through there, pedaling extremely fast and almost running over dogs and kids and whatever. So I don't, as you get up in class, then I really worry about, you know, if you get to a class 3 e-bike and you know, what are people going to, you know, people, are they going to be able to do mods that going to make it even faster? So, I mean, it's new time. It's not something that is going to change overnight.
I agree. And you know, this channel and my own personal beliefs, I don't believe in anything past a class 1 bike. Like, I got mine to help me with pedaling, but you know, my personal belief is, you know, class 2, class 3, those are your mopeds, and those have their own use cases, right? But I think you hit the nail on the head as far as like the towpath, and I'll give you an anecdotal bit. My partner is a former triathlete, right? And so keeping up with her is a challenge no matter what. And we went out to the towpath kind of around done off Alexandria Road, right? And so it's, you know, big long straight sections, and just for kicks, you know, I locked out my suspension, I threw it in turbo, and she was on her road bike, and there was no way I could keep up with her. Absolutely no way. I mean, she's doing 25, 30 miles an hour on these straightaways, obviously safely. There was no one else around, but you know, I think in that particular use case, you've exceeded the use of you know, that e-bike, and there are many, you know, analog classic bikes that are likely more dangerous or could pose a bigger risk. But I think it's also a community issue. You know, I've personally received a lot of backlash, even on riding trails that I'm allowed to ride. Austin Badger is a perfect example. They are staunch advocates of class 1 bikes. There is not a single time that I ride, that as long as I see someone else, that I don't get called, you know, a cheater, you know, or, you know, something like that, or even just pushback. Hey, are you even allowed to ride that there? So, you know, I think that there is a lot of more research that needs to be done, you know, impact both on the flow of ridership, right? You know, because if I'm a little bit faster, and, you know, does that impact your ability to enjoy the trail? The physical impact, right? Like, does more tires on dirt cause a bigger displacement, or is it appreciable enough that it's going to cause a change in how that trail needs to be maintained? But overall, it's a community change. It has to, can it be accepted? And are we going to look at this 5 years in retrospect and be like, is it, you know, is it the argument between clips and clipless, you know, like, you know, like, or flats and clipless, right? Is it going to be that mundane, or is it going to be a continued issue? And that's what I'm interested to see change. You know, obviously I have no fiduciary interest in e-bikes, but it helped me get more active and into the sport, which is why we made this channel. We want more people to approach it. It's done wonders for us, and that might be a way of getting more people involved, but more people involved does mean more maintenance, and it means more need for associations like CAMBA.
Right. Absolutely. No, I totally agree. I think, you know, any change is takes time. And absolutely. I think that, you know, and for yourself and other e-bike riders, you know, you've got to be on your, I don't mean this negatively, but on your best behavior, right? You can't.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's how mountain bikers felt years ago. And even still today, you know, when we're on multi-use trails, you know, I always tell people I'm riding with, you know, be respectful to the hikers, the walkers, because if not, you're just giving the whole sport a bad name.
Yeah. And there's more behind that too, right? Like, because there's that whole diamond of who's supposed to give way to other people. I think that we as a community should always be expecting to be the one to give way, right? Or give people the amount of time necessary that they need to give way, because that'll avoid those situations like you mentioned on the Facebook, where maybe someone doesn't feel safe riding there anymore, right? Like, if I'm just gonna get blown by, like if that's someone out on their first ride and they get blown by someone doing 25 on Bedford or wherever they were, they might not want to continue. And we as a community shouldn't be setting that precedent. You know, there should be more advocacy from each individual.
Absolutely. And then on the flip side too, I don't think you can take one one bad experience and kind of paint your whole, view of a specific trail or a, mountain bike, whatever it is. I think that, we've all gotten past, I've had, I would say the bulk of hikers I experience step off the trail.
Yeah.
I expect to stop. I slow down, especially if they have a dog or if you're at Bedford and you're on the all-purpose, people have kids and stuff. I expect to stop, but most of the time they're going to get out of your way because they know it's easier. It's easier for a walker, hiker, or runner to step off the trail than it is for a mountain biker coming down a hill or trying to climb a hill to have to stop and move over for them. So it's a give and take. It's being respectful of everything around you, of whether it's people, nature, the trail, your fellow riders. It's just a matter of, we're all in it to have fun, to enjoy the sport, not to, get hassled.
I was on OECR. This was about maybe 4 or 5 months ago. And for anyone who's ridden it, they know exactly the area that I'm talking about. It's after the root gap and before the 90-degree turn to do like the root jump, the jump up. The trail's only about 18 inches wide right there. And, I was trucking it along and there was a hiker with an unleashed dog and I'm trying to climb because I need the speed to get over that route. And, I ended up going ass over elbows because I didn't want to run into this, unleashed dog. And I ended up 50 feet down the ravine. So, it's, I certainly didn't have a good time that day. And I was like, why are hikers here? Right? Like, how dare they? But they have just as much of a right there as well. They were doing the right thing. They were coming the opposite direction. Right. So
they weren't doing the right thing with the unleashed dog though.
They weren't. No, screw them for that. But, but me being at the bottom of the ravine with my bike on my head, like I was not having a good time. But no, I think it's having the awareness of those around you, but also realizing that we're all collectively trying to recreate the best that we can, know that we're in a different environment than we were a year ago, and then, realizing what we can do better.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we got about 2 minutes left. So I got 2 last questions and then we'll be all set. But, I want to we talked a little bit about the past. We kind of talked a little bit about now. What do you see in the next, say, 6 to 12 months, changes that either CAMBA is actively working towards or either like the local metro parks or CVMP? What can we expect as a biking community as far as what's coming down the pipe?
Well, I think, there's still work going on. Obviously, the trails that we have, they need to be maintained, and that's going to continue. Bedford, as we talked about, needs some work. There's always going to be trail maintenance, always going to be a tree come down, or, if we have a historic rain like we had on Labor Day, trails are going to get washed out or whatever. I just think that as a group, we just need to keep moving forward and being positive and be cohesive.
Absolutely.
I said before, be a part of the solution, get involved, become a member, go to a trail day. It doesn't have to be financial support. You could come to a trail day and help work out. The more, when we had those big groups coming, you can get a lot done in a small amount of time if people come. Look, if your favorite trail is Austin Badger, follow the Austin Badger trail crew, see when they're doing work. Not everything has to be through CAMBA. We're a community. Our role as CAMBA, as we see going forward, is helping support some of these underserved trails. And when I say underserved, I mean they don't have a big park budget behind them.
Right.
We're involved now, helping Geauga Parks. They just opened their first mountain bike trail, and that's a big step for that park system. Because for years I don't think they were wanting, mountain bikers in there, and they're really excited now to open up their first 2 miles. So we're going to continue to advocate for trails. We're going to continue to support trails. We continue to work hard to make it enjoyable.
No, that's great. And I saw that that just recently opened. That is on our list to go check out. So I'm very excited to see, more options for the people in the northeast,
right.
Northeast Ohio.
Yeah, Big Creek Park, where the trail is, it's a beautiful park. It's
Yeah.
old growth. It's just a gorgeous park.
Yeah, and just the general area, there is a lot of sand there, and it should drain pretty quickly. So it's going to provide another option. You know, if something washes out, you know, your favorite trail washes out in Cleveland, they have a different set of weather patterns over there, a different type of dirt. So, you know, having a diversity and different locations will give you, you know, options on those days that, you know, you're just looking for anything to ride.
Right. And they have a very small permanent trail crew, so they're looking for volunteers too to help build and maintain that trail.
Awesome. Is there, you know, before we, you know, part today, is there any kind of last words, or, you know, if you wanted to get anything across to the audience, what would it be?
I just think, you know, we talked a lot about it. Support the community, you know, be respectful of the people in the community, of the land managers, you know, be part of the solution. Come out and help. You know, when new people are asking questions, as long as it's not, is the trail open today? Questions on Facebook, you know, answer with respect. Don't troll these posts and give these people answers that, you know, you're trying to be cute, but it really doesn't come across that way to the person that's reading that.
No, that's great to hear. I super appreciate your time, Stephen. You know, what I'm hearing from this is, you know, be advocates, be leaders, be part of the solution, and don't take away from us, either people trying to get into the sport or just trying to go out there and recreate.
Absolutely. You know, we worked very hard to get where we are today, and we're very fortunate to have the trails that we do have compared to what we had 10 years ago. So,
yeah,
you know,
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Stephen, and thank you everyone for taking the time to watch this. I think the third episode of The Dirt, and, you know, we're really glad to be able to bring you content like this. So make sure you know, like, comment, subscribe, tell us what you want to see, and as always, stay dirty.